Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First, we had this afternoon temperatures rising into the 90s once again across areas of Copper River Basin, Kenai Peninsula, south central Alaska. Stony, 93 degrees. These were all 3 p.m. temperatures mid-afternoon. Likely to go higher, definitely here by the time the heating of the day ends later on. But Big Lake again back into the lower 90s with 91. Chitina over in the Copper River Basin east of Gulkana, which had 88 today. Also Willow, 90 degrees even, again at 3 p.m. And yesterday, kind of a when you set an all-time high, that's kind of a big deal. I don't get too excited over daily record highs. Monthly, a little more, but all-time records, Kenai, 89 degrees. King Salmon, same thing at 89. They're currently 88 degrees right now, so they may set another all-time record here before the day's over. Palmer up to 88, again an all-time record. 90, Anchorage International Airport, of all places, in Merrill Field. Hard to believe, but it did occur. The old record, 85, set in 1969 and also in 2004. And then also in 1953, there was an 86 record recorded, or an 86 degree day recorded in June 1953, but that got thrown out. Anyway, there's no doubt now, the all-time record for Anchorage, without question, is now 90 Fahrenheit. Moving on to hazardous weather graphic, we still have that ongoing fog advisory, or smoke advisory, dense smoke advisory, mainly the western Kenai Peninsula, and it's really not ongoing. It's more or less overnight period, early morning hours when you get the stability and the chances for enough smoke to accumulate to get the visibilities down to under half a mile or even a quarter mile, and that's what the advisory is for. And from there, the fire danger map, quite an expanding area of high to very high fire danger here from the upper Yukon Valley, where it's been, gosh, since last spring, right on down in toward the, right to the coast of the Kuskokwim Delta, where temperatures were in the 80s there south of the, or on the eastern part of the Kuskokwim Delta, right out to the coastline, with 70s up along the southwest coast. 76, Cape Newenham, for example, Cold Bay, 70 degrees, and then 80s. Pilot Point, lower 80s today, high 80s, King Salmon, Dillingham in the 80s again, so high to very high fire danger now into those areas with extreme along the east side of the Alaska range here and into the Kuskokwim Valley, again with Stony pushing up into the lower 90s today, and not that hot over at McGrath. Extreme fire danger, again expanding up there. Our Yukon Flats, and now showing up some high to very high fire danger returning to the northern slopes of the eastern Alaska range, and also Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, areas of extreme fire danger, as well as the Copper River Basin. And from there, moving to satellite imagery, see lots of clear skies here, more clear skies than were yesterday. Farther to the north, now allow temperatures to rise into the 80s here over the central interior finally, and that extending back out toward the coastline and down in toward Bristol Bay. Lots of sunshine there. This kind of high clouds through here, and so the lee side of the Alaska Peninsula, actually a lot of the Alaska Peninsula and north, were in the 70s to lower 80s there. Kodiak inland areas, 70s to near 80. Otherwise, you can see the low clouds and fog along the coast, keeping State Airport in the 50s much of the into the mid-afternoon hours. Southeast coast, clear. Fog along low clouds along the coast or near the coast, but inland temperatures into the 80s from 81 at Juneau, Klondike Highway, all the way down to Ketchikan, or Annette had 85, and Hoona was up into the lower 80s as well. I think they had, let's see, 89 degrees. And so quite warm temperatures there, into the mid-80s in the Tanana Valley. And for the, otherwise, we got this area of cloudiness persisting up here over the northwest. A few hundredths of an inch of precipitation, like Kotzebue picked up 1/100th of an inch of precipitation. So very light, a few isolated showers there. And of course, that knocked the fire danger down up in this area. And also pretty weak systems traveling eastward along the Arctic coast, most of it up in the Arctic, but trailing edges catching the coastline there. And some winds kicked up to about 30 miles an hour along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast here, but around 1/10 of an inch of precipitation fell on the central coast in the last 12 hours, with just a few hundredths off to the east. And pretty gusty winds, kind of a classic wind setup here. And earlier, actually late last night, early this morning, Cape Lisburne had gusts to 61 miles per hour out of the west-southwest. They're still gusting up to near 50 this afternoon as well. And Ahkun Island, east winds gusting 45 miles an hour there. Otherwise, winds generally pretty light across the state. Lots of clouds out over the Bering Sea with not much in the way of any precipitation associated with it, basically high pressure, that kind of an advection fog stratus type condition. Clearing here, trying to push into the Pribilofs, and actually some clear skies reported in one of the obs this afternoon out at Adak, and not too bad. Looks like better conditions up there St. Lawrence Island, but dense fog hanging in at Tin City. A little bit of improvement this afternoon. Lots of low clouds and fog over the Gulf of Alaska here. For today, you can see that condition quite nicely here. Smoke in the Kenai Peninsula. Areas of smoke, really not any big deal up there in the interior, but still a little bit of that around. Thunderstorm forecast it hasn't actually happened here yet, just north of Skagway. Temperatures, though, rising up to near 90 in some areas along the Klondike Highway, so I wouldn't be surprised if one does finally pop there before the day's over. Otherwise, sunshine, dry, hot across the Panhandle, much of the interior, cooler to the north, and cloudy, cooler, of course, over the Aleutians and the Bering. And for tonight, no change out there to the west. We got a washing out front here coming up. They'll spread some light rain, fog, and drizzle, make it more extensive from Adak to Atka, even over to the eastern Aleutians, probably the southern side of the Alaska Peninsula, King Cove, False Pass, best chance, and otherwise no change. Interior Alaska, dry and mild, lows 55 to 65, cooler along the coast or up to the north there. And high pressure now at the surface, way up here in the north and northwest, and then still down the Gulf of Alaska. Risk of a thunderstorm again, kind of an upper trough sliding southeastward, so that area will be slowly moving eastward, but it's not much of a threat at all, just a very slight chance. And then the outlook for tomorrow, first day of the weekend, day much like today, maybe a little cooler here over the Kenai Peninsula, south central Alaska, and not much though. Maybe some low clouds, fog might try to sneak into southern Cook Inlet. Definitely along the east side of Kodiak again. North Gulf Coast pretty good, sunny and hot again for the Panhandle. Thunderstorm area now a little farther to the southeast there. Mostly the best chance, or the only chance, would be Stewart and Hyder. Areas of smoke in the interior, more extensive though over the Kenai Peninsula, and even breaking out over the North Slope and Arctic coast with a little bit of sunshine. Nothing big going on out over the Bering Sea. A couple of weak troughs there for IFR to low IFR conditions with the drizzle and fog. And then looking at Sunday, finally a storm makes an appearance here on this chart, if you can call it that, or a system anyway. Now spread some rain, but not much of an increase in the winds here, but it'll swing it around to the east or southeast here over the Aleutians. And generally fair, low clouds, fog, eastern Bering, high pressure continues to hold the whole scene from the Bering Strait right on down into the actually Gulf of Alaska, sunny and hot in the interior again. South central Alaska, Cook Inlet, maybe highs more in the 75 to 80 degree range. Otherwise, another day, Sunday, much like Saturday for the remainder of the state. And lows for tonight, really mild here over the southwest interior, 60 to 65 for your overnight lows. Upper 50s in the Tanana Valley, 55 to 60. South central Alaska, 50 to 60, or 55 to 60 for the Panhandle. 40s along the Arctic coast up Kaktovik at 37. Highs tomorrow again near 90s to Sit in the Valley, as well as the Copper River Basin. Mid 80s central interior, upper 80s McGrath, lower 80s right on down again toward the southwest coast. St. Mary's, Bethel in the lower 80s, near 70 all the way out to Kotzebue, and 75 to 85 or even toward 90 there over portions of the Panhandle. And for the lows the following morning, still very mild in the 60s here over the southwest interior, Kuskokwim Valley, near 60, 55 to 60, Tanana Valley, followed by highs again, upper 80s, cooler though over southern Alaska, mid 70s and 70s, lower 80s for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to the first line weather graphic. VFR over interior Alaska, all the way up across the north slope with IFR, mostly along the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, IFR like today down through the Bering Strait from the Chukchi Sea, St. Lawrence Island, and just about all the Bering Sea into the Aleutians has a fair chance of seeing some IFR at some point of the overnight hours or by tomorrow morning. And IFR along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, this is all low clouds and some areas of fog here, Kodiak Island. Some of that could slip on up into southern Cook Inlet, and the marginal stuff could maybe sneak into Prince William Sound as it has today. And then that extends right along the coast all the way down toward Dixon Entrance. For tomorrow afternoon, pulls back off the coast, especially up here on the north coast. Will be VFR over the Panhandle there. And Kenai Peninsula, of course, the ongoing smoke still causing fuss in mainly the Kenai Peninsula, mainly the western Kenai Peninsula. Areas of smoke over the interior, not much of a problem at all. Otherwise, VFR, IFR out west, and for Sunday morning. Not much change. VFR over the interior, areas of smoke, especially the Kenai Peninsula, and this IFR into southern Cook Inlet, a little bit farther north now. That's the low clouds and fog here in the stratus that's been in the Gulf of Alaska. That trying to slip on up a little bit, could get it in Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, IFR along the coast. Same thing for the Aleutians, Bering Sea, and up along the Arctic coast through the Bering Strait. For the afternoon, VFR for the Panhandle, some IFR now down off the Prince Wales Island coast there, and maybe a little bit of marginal over the southern areas, but not too much. VFR in the interior. And again, that IFR sneaks up a little farther up the inlet there with marginal VFR, kind of a mixture going on there of the smoke and then the low clouds and fog, whatever it does, get up into the southern inlet. Otherwise, out west, areas of mostly IFR for the Bering Sea into the Aleutians, and looks a little better up here in Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, maybe VFR Sunday afternoon. Otherwise, no change for the Arctic coast. And for Anaktuvik and Adigan, VFR flying, both passes tomorrow. Same forecast for Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy, all VFR. Windy, same forecast, good VFR again, probably through the weekend. And Isabel, VFR, Mentasta, VFR weekend coming up, as well as Tanita. Portage, eastern entrance, a little questionable if some of that low cloud deck makes it up in there or not, but marginal possibly becoming VFR later in the day. Otherwise, the pass VFR, and for Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, again, big upper level high here with the very warm air, especially aloft here. So 32 degrees will occur tomorrow morning at 14,000 feet here over central and southern Alaska into the Gulf. 12,000 feet all the way up to the Brooks Range, 8,000 feet just clipping the eastern Arctic coast there. Otherwise, 12,000 across the Panhandle, much of the eastern northern Bering Sea, 12,000 foot freezing levels, 10,000 over the Aleutians. And icing above about 11,000 feet, light rime icing, or maybe isolated, really isolated, considerable, probably none at all there. But again, you got to get up above 11,000 feet. And then with that weak trough up there over the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, could be some areas of, again, very isolated, considerable moderate rime or mixed icing there above about 8,000 or 9,000 feet. Otherwise, icing free everywhere else. Moving on to the 33,000 foot wind flow chart. Couple of upper level highs, really just one big area of high pressure here from the Gulf of Alaska right up ridging in to the Chukchi Sea there, and 70 knot winds kind of clipping the eastern Arctic coast, and not too strong, still offshore flow for the Panhandle, only at 30 knots, southeast 50 to 60 from the eastern Aleutians into the central Bering Sea. And for 9,000 feet, again, high pressure here, just kind of a little bit farther to the west now, but still ridging down well into the Gulf and southward. Flow around the top of that could be 25 to maybe 40 knots there up along the Panhandle, and 3,000 feet, about the same pattern here, westerlies 20 to 30 knots, 10 to 25 there across the Alaska Peninsula, otherwise just 10 to 15, and light winds over the Panhandle and much of interior Alaska. And for turbulence, isolated moderate chop there, eastern Arctic coast and the eastern Aleutians.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision-making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot changed from yesterday. We lost that strip that was kind of extending down here out over the Chukchi Sea. It was way out there in the middle of nowhere, and about the same here on the east side. And no big changes again in the forecast for the next 5 days. Coastal water forecast for the Panhandle. West winds 20 knots on the north coast, and then northwest 20 knots for the remainder of the coastline there, with seas at 6 feet. Light northwest winds, central and southern inside waters north 15, Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. Outlook for Sunday, swing those winds around to the south there for Lynn Canal, 15 knots in the afternoon. Otherwise, southerlies 10 to 15 for the central southern inside waters, seas only running 2 to 3 feet. Northwesterlies at 20 knots with 7-foot seas continue here for much of the coast, and 15, a little bit lighter up on the extreme north coast. And for Prince William Sound, light southwest breeze tomorrow, 10 knots, seas 2 feet, west 20 knots for the Middleton Island zone there with 4-foot seas. Otherwise, western North Gulf Coast across the Barren Islands, southwest at 15. Southwest 10 for Kamishak Bay, Cook Inlet, south to southwest in the afternoon, 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And about the same on Sunday, southwest 10 for Kamishak Bay, all of Cook Inlet, seas in the inlet there 1 foot and 2 feet for Kamishak Bay. Southwest 15, Barren Islands up into the western North Gulf Coast, the eastern side here, west of 15, seas 5 feet, and a day much like Saturday for Prince William Sound. And for Kodiak Island, southwest 15 tomorrow, including Shelikof Strait, seas 3 to 4 feet, southwest 10 there from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and then going easterly from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, Bering Sea side of the peninsula, 15 knots out of the east, Pacific side 20 knots, light southwest breeze, King Salmon, Bristol Bay, and seas at just 1 foot. Outlook for Sunday, still southwest 10, but seas at 2 feet now for Bristol Bay, and we got a northeast breeze or variable to northeast at 10, seas 1 foot. East 15 on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Small craft advisories due to those 8-foot seas that are in the forecast. Otherwise, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southwest 10, seas 5 feet. Southwest 15, Kodiak Island. Fox Islands tomorrow, east-northeast 20 knots, seas 4 to 8 feet. So small craft advisories on the southern zones. Northeast 15 there for the central Aleutians, 5 to 8 foot seas, and east-northeast 15 all the way out to Shimianatu. And for Sunday, about the same, Sunday about the same. Northeast winds 15 for the western Aleutians, central Aleutians, Adak Atka, east at 20, seas 8 feet. And Fox Islands, east-southeast 20 knots, seas 3 to 9 feet. And for the Perloffs, light northwest breeze at 10 with 3-foot seas. South of Nunivak Island, west 15. and seas at just 2 feet. Northeast 20 though here, north of Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast out to St. Matthew Island. Same forecast, 20-knot winds from the northeast, St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. Outlook for Sunday, bring it down to 15 knots, still northeasterly there, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island. Yukon Delta coast on out to St. Matthew Island. Light west winds for the area west of Kuskokwim Bay, south of Nunivak Island. Light southerlies for St. Paul and St. George. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west 15 to as high as 20 knots tomorrow, and southwest 20 there for the central coast. Small craft advisories there on the west side here for southwesterlies at 25 knots. 20-knot winds, though, from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson and Cape Thompson to Wales, south at 10. Outlook for Sunday, variable to north at 10 here from Wales to Cape Thompson and southwest 15. Turn west 15 there from Point Lay on up, actually all the way over to Demarcation Point. West winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And for tonight, again, fair, mild overnight lows, especially here over the southwest interior, lows in the 60 to 65 degree range, and 55 to 60 interior Alaska. A little cooler up here to the north, clouds, drizzle, fog, eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Risk of a thunderstorm tracking down the border there of the Panhandle, otherwise fair. Low clouds and fog, Gulf of Alaska, may push up into southern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound maybe, Kodiak Island definitely, in the Alaska Peninsula. And for tomorrow, sunny and hot again, highs 80 to 90, southern Alaska, mid-80s in the interior, 80s all the way back to the southwest coast, and a repeat of that, except probably cooler here for the Kenai Peninsula on Sunday, with the Panhandle looking pretty good again. A couple of warm days coming up with highs in the 80s.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.